good guys always win. Even in the 80s.
Hi and welcome back to Terry Talks Movies. This time around I'm going into the 1980s, and the 1980s were a really weird decade. And I'm not just talking about my personal life, I'm talking about movies. And some of the movies from the 1980s were ill-considered in some ways, but entertaining. And international co-productions in particular were kind of odd and kind of weird. And the lovely people at Umbrella Entertainment have given me one to review. And it's a piece of art from 1982 called Megaforce. Now, they gave me the full package for Megaforce, and thank you to them for that. Now, Megaforce is an action film directed by Hal Needham, who also directed Smokey and the Bandit. And it stars Barry Bostwick as Ace Hunter, the head of Megaforce. Works under an international oversight organisation called SCUF, Supreme Command United Free Forces. Now, SCUF sounds like something that happens to shoes, not to international relations. And Megaforce is high-tech as hell. It's got cutting-edge weaponry. It's got surveillance systems beyond anything that existed in the 1980s. It's got a whole bunch of kind of undisciplined soldiers who basically drop into a place in motorbikes and dune buggies, take care of business, take out the bad guys, and then go away again. That's their whole raison d'etre. So we've got Barry Bostwick, who of course was in Rocky Horror playing Brad Majors, playing Ace Hunter in this. You've got Michael Beck from The Warriors playing Dallas. He's offsider who, for reasons best known to Trump supporters, wears a Confederate flag instead of an American flag on his sleeve. You have Persis Kambata playing the mandatory love interest, so everything doesn't look a little bit homoerotic, even though all the men in Megaforce wear really tight lycra jumpsuits. This movie is totally over the top crazy. And the supporting cast is pretty damn good as well. You've got Henry Silva playing the bad guy Guerrera, Duke Guerrera, who's an old buddy of Ace Hunter's. You've also got Edward Mulhare, who people remember most for playing the guy who created Kit in Knight Rider, and was also in the TV series of The Ghost of Mrs. Muir for that matter, playing a general who is working for one of the two nations who are in dispute. Guerrero works for the other one. And Edward Mulhare, of course, does his usual thing, which is to play a lighter version of Rex Harrison. This movie has everything you could want for in a 1980s action film, except Arnold Schwarzenegger shaking hands with Carl Weathers.
You son of a bitch!
It doesn't have that. But apart from that, it's got everything. It's got montages. It's got a 1980s synth score by Gerald Immel. And it has explosions, kind of cheesy special effects, including technology called IntroVision, which was used in the 1980s to put live action actors into model scenes. So basically it was a way of incorporating live action with kind of miniature model work. It gives it a kind of interesting, odd look, which I really appreciate. You see it mostly when you take a look at the Megaforce base. A lot of this large-scale internal structures in the Megaforce base are actually models into which the live action people have been introduced. And it doesn't quite look right, but it looks right enough to be acceptable in a cheesy 1980s movie. This movie was nominated for 3 Razzie Awards, which is kind of cool. Now, the Razzies have been a little bit on the nose lately because they gave some to Bruce Willis when he was suffering from a cognitive impairment. And so nobody likes the Razzies anymore. Fair enough too, because the best in movies should be celebrated. The worst in movies should be left for people like me and YouTube channels. Now, this movie is knowingly silly. Right from the very start, where somebody's reading out a communist manifesto as a text being done on a power plant. And you have Henry Silva just cutting into that and blasting away the power plant. It's tongue-in-cheek stuff. It's not meant to be a serious war movie like the Delta Force or Dogs of War, for instance. It's meant to be an action film. Now, it got a G rating here in Australia. And even though there is action, even though there is warfare, even though there are guys hitting tanks with missiles, there's really no evidence that anybody gets killed in this film, which is kind of okay. It was meant for kids anyway, because the toys for this movie were made before the movie. Mattel had a co-production deal with Golden Harvest, Raymond Chow's company, and so they made the toys ahead of time, and all of the equipment in the movie had to look like the toys, so they kind of retrofitted the real stuff. And the other thing too is that all of the costumes for Megaforce were designed by Mattel, the same people who do Ken, Barbie and Skipper. So the skin-tight jumpsuits, the really cheesy and slightly over-the-top uniforms that Megaforce wear when they're on base, all of that stuff was designed by a toy company because it was easy to make action figures with those things in them. The movie is in so many ways so crazy, and Umbrella Entertainment have done a really nice job of packaging it. For a start, Megaforce hat. Deeds, not words. And that's actually a good motto for Megaforce, because there's the romance scenes between Persis Kambata's character and Ace Hunter. And yeah, they would have been better with less words. And the movie itself demonstrates that in the scene when they're having a romantic ballet while free falling out of an aeroplane, where they get together and kind of hold hands and act lovey-dovey while you get a really nice romantic synthy score under the soundtrack. This movie is over-the-top crazy. It's one of those movies that you can watch with a group of people when you lightly self-medicate and maybe you've had ribs and beers, and you can just kind of sit back and enjoy the ambience and the over-the-top silliness of this movie. It was really a big seller and a big renter in the 1980s when video stores were going. In fact, I will start to show you the package that, apart from the hat, that Umbrella have put together for this movie, and it's quite considerable too. You can get two versions. You can just get the movie, which in itself is great because it's got a lot of extras in it. But I got the full package, and they gave me a Megaforce membership card, which I'm going to fill out, which says that I'm a member of the fighting team of Megaforce. And dumb shit like that really amuses and delights me, because we never stop being a kid, if we're honest with ourselves. Also got two Megaforce rainbow stickers. There's one, there's the other. So I've got two of them. I'm going to find something to put them on that's going to be really wonderful as well. And there is more. I'm not going to be able to get all of this possibly on the screen, but there's a full-size poster. If you want to hang that up, I'm going to keep it with the package because I don't have any hanging room left in the house. But there's your beautiful poster. There's the Hong Kong version of it. The Chinese Hong Kong version of it. Plus, yes, there's more. Plus, we've got these cards, which have a whole bunch of different posters for the movie, along with, on the back of each one, the thing where you could actually join when in the 1980s if you're a kid, the Megaforce fan club. So we've got that English language version. I think it's English language. Yeah, we've got that English language version of the poster. We've got the German one as well, which has got the same thing on the back. I think that's the Dutch one, the one from the Netherlands. Japanese version. The very dark and austere French version. A slightly more vivid French version. A smaller version of the Hong Kong one. And a different variant on the standard poster. So we've got all that in the package along with the hat. Now the hat is a mesh back, so I'm not always fond of mesh back hats, but this one sits well and fits well. I wouldn't wear it out in the sun because the back of my scalp would get sunburned through the mesh, and the bald spot would. But the whole package together is really cool. Now, I haven't even got to the disc yet. It's part of Umbrella Entertainment's Beyond Genres label. and it's in volume 21 of that. There's the outside case, which is kind of classy. There's the back, which has got all the extras, and there are significant extras in here. There's a 40-minute interview with Barry Bostwick. There's an audio commentary with author Stephen Vagg. There's an audio commentary with Barry Bostwick and Bob Lindemeyer. There's a 2019 interview with Barry Bostwick and Michael Beck at a convention where they basically tell stories about the making of the film in a very amusing way. You get some gameplay of the Megaforce Atari 2600 computer game, and we've come a long way since 1982. But there's an IntroVision behind the scenes footage which explains the IntroVision process that allowed them to drop live action into miniature sets, and that was kind of interesting from a filmmaking perspective and from a perspective of how far we've come along with computer technology doing certain things in movies. It used to be a lot harder, but it's good to see the interim technologies between something, say, like King Kong, the original version King Kong, and the modern day. There were interstitial technologies that allowed people to be put into frame in increasingly economic ways while making action films. We've got Life After Megaforce, an interview with Barry Bostwick and Bob Lindemeyer. A documentary trailer, Mega Destroyer Test Drive. They actually grabbed some of the old bikes and cars from Megaforce, and people have restored them. And there's footage of somebody with a restored version of one of the cars used by Megaforce, where somebody's restored it and got it running again. So that's kind of sweet. There's a Hal Needham trailer reel, so all the trailers of Hal Needham's action films. Started out as a stunt director, went on to make movies, kept the aesthetic and the mindset of a stunt director. There's stills and poster gallery, Australian VHS trailer. So the trailer that came out at the start of movies in Australia when Megaforce came out. US and Japanese TV spots, teaser trailer and Easter eggs. Now inside it looks a lot different. So there's your cover. The inside cover is that on one side, and for Australian nostalgia, there's the original VHS cover that Roadshow used when they put the movie out on VHS, which is a lot of fun. Inside you've got the disc and the Chinese cover in widescreen as well. So it's a very nicely put together package. I can't see anything that says it's region locked. I don't know whether it is or not, but I don't think it is. You might want to check before you buy, but I checked it out today. The transfer is really good. The 1080p transfer that they use for this is really crisp, and it's kind of geared to people not taking the movies seriously. There's a tendency with action films, particularly action films of a certain time, to say that they're good or bad based on how serious they take themselves. This one is tongue-in-cheek. They don't quite break the fourth wall. Almost they do, but they don't quite. And the ending is ridiculous. But it's very much one of those movies that was done for entertainment. It cost $20 million to make it, made $3 million back on the US box office, so it wasn't a success at the time. But I think it's one of those slow burn cult films where people who rented it on VHS back in the day have a fondness for it. Didn't particularly like it when I did, when I rented it in the 80s. But rewatching it now, I can see what they were trying to do. I can see the tongue-in-cheek. I can see the lack of seriousness and the self-awareness that the movie has that really makes this work in a modern context. I enjoyed this one more than I thought I would, which is kind of weird because I was thinking, oh, well, I've been sent a review copy, I'll review it. But Megaforce is dumb fun. And increasingly, as I watch a combination of serious films and non-serious films, you kind of want to have some dumb fun sometimes. You want a movie that's really crazy in its own inimitable way. And of course this movie was influential as well. Without this film we wouldn't have had Team America World Police, the Trey Parker and Matt Stone movie with the puppets, which references this movie in a number of different ways. And so this movie is kind of nostalgic now. It's 40 years old and we can have a reasonable distance and a nostalgia about it. It doesn't particularly do that thing that I don't like in American action films at the time, in waving flags, because Megaforce is an international force. So you've got a Korean guy played by Evan Kim, who people remember was the Bruce Lee surrogate in Kentucky Fried Movie. He's in this as well. What would have been great is if it had Antonio Fargas in it, but any movie of any age that has Antonio Fargas in it is automatically 15% better, but it doesn't have Antonio Fargas in it. I kind of like doing this. I like going back to movies that I didn't like in earlier times and finding out that I like them. And it's never predictable for me. I can watch a movie that I thought was crap in, say, 1980. And for a lot of them, it's still crap. But this one, that didn't happen. And I'm kind of happy about that, because either I've got more relaxed and less tight sphinctered about the movies I watch, or the movie was better than I thought it was the first time around. It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's a lot of fun. And I'm glad that it's been put out in such a wonderful package and has given me another hat to wear while I do my videos. But it says here, are you man enough for Megaforce? Which is suitably 1986, I suppose. And even though the movie does go to great lengths to show that Persis Kambata's character is the equal of all the men in the movie, she doesn't get to do the action scenes. She gets sidelined, which has got to be ultimate 1980s in a way. So that's it for this time around. I've got 2 more movies that Umbrella's sent me today. Actually 3 movies. One's a double box set. One's an Australian crime movie that you're going to want to check out. And the others are horror movies from the 40s and the 50s, which deserve to get re-recognised. But anyway, I'm going to do those in a future video. In the meantime, check out Megaforce. And thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of this one when you saw it originally. And if you've seen it in more recent times, tell me what you think of it now. Because reevaluating these movies is something that I kind of like doing. I don't want to do it all the time, but I don't mind doing it now and then. You can also support the channel, by the way, by donating at patreon.com/paleocinema. I'm going to be doing a video for the Patreon people with a 1970s witchcraft film from England that's a bit unusual. And I'll release it later on the channel about 3 or 4 weeks from now. But anyway, in the meantime, look after yourself, stay safe, stay hydrated if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, stay warm if you're down here. Watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, reevaluate some movies you thought were really bad, and I'll catch you next time.